what you know about purification to save the heart of a nation. Let burn a talking wood, bringing light to a talking wood. Natural law, just wisdom and love, vision truth below as a bird. Let burn a talking wood, let burn a talking wood.
Welcome to the Affirm Life Daily podcast. I'm your host, Cynthia Mitchell. As always, I invite you to check out the website, affirmlifedaily.com. Please follow on social media and YouTube at Affirm Life Daily. Your support and your participation and your encouragement, all of those things help spread the movement of truth and freedom. We need all hands on deck. We can look around and see what's going on. So we absolutely need your support, and it's greatly, greatly appreciated. So tonight I will be talking to you all about the power of imagination. It's a topic that I feel like it might seem really simplistic, but it's really a lot to it. And I really feel like it's kind of one of those foundational things that we take for granted, our imaginations. And so I really want to dive deep into the topic. So I'm going to share my screen, and we will get started. All right, can you all see that?
Yep, I see it.
You can? Okay, great. So okay, here we go. Okay, so the power of imagination, discussing what imagination is and how it can be used to empower, create, and heal. These are the questions that I'll be exploring. First is, what is imagination and how does it work? Why and how did our imaginations become so limited? Why is imagination so important? I mean, it is crucially important. Once we get into the podcast, you'll see what I mean. It is crucially important. How do we reignite our imaginations? How do we invigorate them? How do we bring them back to life? And how does imagination relate to natural law? So let's go ahead and dive in. I wanted to start with a quote by Neville Goddard. He's a writer, speaker, and mystic. I just really found this quote encapsulates everything that I'm going to be talking about. Imagination is the only redemptive power in the universe. That's a powerful statement in and of itself. And when you really think about imagination, it truly is a redemptive power. When you don't have imagination, you are unable to create. You are unable to gain knowledge, because imagination is a precipice of knowledge, is a precipice of creation. So imagination is a form of perception. And I want to play a video clip that kind of expands on that.
Is deafening. From childhood, you were taught to distrust that inner pull. You were rewarded for following rules, not instincts. Praised for repeating facts, not asking deeper questions. Conditioned to believe that guidance comes from authority, not from within. And every time you felt something stir in your gut, something deeper, something truer, you were told to suppress it, that it was just imagination. But Hermeticists knew that imagination is not a fantasy. It's a form of perception, a way to access the subtle realms where the daemon resides. Your daemon is not there to flatter you. It doesn't care about your ego, your career status, your likes or followers. It is singularly focused on one thing, helping you remember who you are.
I really like that clip because I don't think sometimes we appreciate the power of the imagination, and it does help you access the subtle realms both within yourself and outside of yourself. So imagination is indeed a form of perception. And it's funny because Ray said, it's just imagination. Think about how common that term is, because imagination is so marginalized on purpose in our society to just think of it, oh, you're just fantasizing. Oh, it's just your imagination, whatever. Taking away the power from imagination, making it seem like something irrelevant or something silly or something childish, when in reality, it's none of those things. So what is imagination? As I always do with my podcast, I like to define terms to make sure that we're all talking about the same thing, because people, tend to define terms differently sometimes. So imagination is more than just vivid images and ideas we are able to conjure with our minds. That's part of it, of course, but it's more than that. Imagination is a way of communicating with the conscious. We are manifesting and creating through our imagination. Our imagination, it serves as a spark. It serves as a source for creation. It is a precursor to all knowledge. Just think about that. Imagination and knowledge are an endless dance. That's a quote by Richard Faulkner, because of that relationship together. They're always, weaving in and out of each other. One cannot exist without the other. So it's, it's like an endless dance. I thought that was just a beautiful way to put it in that quote. So I wanted to include that quote as well. So there are a number of types of imagination, way more than this list. I really just kind of stuck to the main ones that really stood out to me in relation to what I'm going to be talking about. And I'm only going to go into a deeper dive on the first three. The other ones I feel like are more self-explanatory, and I really didn't feel like I needed to go as far in depth with them. But collaborative imagination, I probably maybe should have, because that is such an important thing. But I'll just kind of briefly give an overview of the different types of imagination that I want to just bring to people's attention. So we have deliberate versus spontaneous imagination. We have occurrent versus non-occurrent imagination. We have active imagination. Now, active imagination is actually a spiritual healing technique, or you can say even a psychological healing technique, that focuses on exploring the unconscious through imagination. And this was something that was developed by Carl Jung. Sensory imagination explores the human senses: sight, sound, taste, touch, smell. And I always like to add heart to our senses. I think our heart center is definitely one of our senses, and we explore and experience the world through our heart as well. We have recreative imagination, which that's the imagination we use to recreate mental states, like our perceptions, beliefs, or past experience. When we recreate that, that's our recreative imagination. And then collaborative imagination. This is a very important one, especially when we're talking about natural law and changing the way we live and think and are, as far as humanity. So collaborative imagination is a social process where individuals co-create shared visions of the future and experiences. That's why I was saying this, that is an important one, because we do this all the time and not even realize it. So, and that's another reason why who you are in commune with is so important, because you collaborate with energy, with your imagination in so many ways with the people you surround yourself with. So collaborative imagination is something we do very often and just really don't even realize that we're doing it. Applied imagination. This is the imagination that we use to solve problems, create new things, invent something, improve an existing situation, or, tackle something that is problematic in our lives. That's applied imagination, where we're using what we imagine to fix a problem or to create something very, specific. So let's talk about the first one on that list, the deliberate versus spontaneous imagination. So deliberate imagination is imagining on purpose. It comes about from a conscious, focused effort to generate ideas, envision something, or solve a very specific problem. It's not, you're focused on this. It's not something that just, kind of spontaneously happens. It's something that you're definitely doing on purpose. Just the polar opposite of spontaneous imagination, just as it's termed. It's just that it's spontaneous, akin to, daydreaming, when you kind of just drift off and start, thinking of all sorts of things. That's spontaneous imagination. And spontaneous imagination, that is propelled by our subconscious and our intuition. That's why it just seems like it comes out of nowhere, but it's not coming out of nowhere. It's coming from your subconscious and your intuition. And then I want to look at occurrent versus non-occurrent imagination. So what occurrent imagination is imagination that you are actively engaged in with your intention and intent. a good example of that would be like imagining an ending of a movie script that you're writing. So you're writing this script and you are intentionally thinking about, okay, how can I end this? And your imagination's going crazy. Like, oh, I can end it like this. I can have the lead character die or have a happy ending. You're thinking of all these, you're imagining all these possible endings for your movie script, and you're doing that you're actively engaged in that. So that's occurrent imagination, which is the opposite of non-occurrent imagination, which is more like the backdrop or the background noise. So it's not something you are currently focused on, but it's still present subtly. It's just in the backdrop. It's just in the background. An example of non-occurrent imagination would be, say you're imagining what takeout you could have ordered while you're cooking dinner. Your main focus is cooking dinner because you don't want to burn dinner, you want to mess up the recipe, whatever. Your main focus is there. But in the backdrop of your mind, you might be thinking like, oh, you know what? I should have maybe ordered something from that Chinese restaurant that I like. Or, oh, what if we did, what if I would order pizza instead? Or just kind of things that are going, or what if I, switch up this recipe a little bit? How would it taste if I do it different next time? Those are just subtly going on in the back of your mind, but they're not your focal point. So that's your non-occurrent imagination. This is another brief video clip that I wanted to share about active imagination, which I said was Carl Jung's, one of Carl Jung's techniques.
The imagination is not a state. It is the human existence itself. William Blake. Active imagination is a transformative practice developed by Swiss psychologist Carl Jung that offers a path towards attaining wholeness of mind by accessing the unconscious. By engaging with the unconscious mind and fostering open communication with it, individuals can uncover and integrate aspects of themselves that may have remained hidden or repressed.
So this is a very powerful technique. And if you're familiar with Jung's work, you know that he was very much into integration, reaching your subconscious, dealing with things that are suppressed, repressed for the purpose of healing and integration so that you can live consciously. So you can be awake when you make choices, when you move through life, as you elevate and evolve, you're doing it all consciously. And you're not just moving through the world subconsciously, making all your decisions and your choices and your actions based on things that are repressed in your subconscious. So it's a very powerful technique, active imagination. These are some of the benefits of active imagination, of doing that work and dealing with the subconscious, bringing it forth. So you get the deep self-knowledge because you're learning to know yourself, know thyself. That's a big theme in natural law and just in life, period. When you are on your spiritual journey, getting to know yourself at the deepest level possible. Active imagination helps you do that because, again, you're bringing forth what is suppressed, what is in your subconscious, what is repressed. You're bringing all those things to the forefront through this process of active imagination. It expands your freedom. You get greater freedom. And I think all of us who are on this journey can attest to the amount of freedom that you gain every step you make towards knowing yourself better. Every step you make in integrating your shadow side, your repressed parts of you, getting to know yourself more fully. It brings so much freedom because now you're not just walking around. You're walking around with your eyes open, but you're actually asleep because you're moving in ways that you don't even understand because you don't even understand yourself. So once you start understanding yourself and start integrating all the different parts of yourself and start dealing with your subconscious, then your life opens up so wide and so broad and you feel so much freer. And there's a heaviness that comes with living subconsciously. There's a heaviness that comes with that really starts to dissolve when you, start integrating that shadow side and doing the shadow work and dealing with what you suppressed and repressed. And it allows you to resolve emotional challenges because a lot of times the same challenges will present itself over and over and over to you with different people in different circumstances in different ways. And you're not catching why this is repeating because These challenges are repeating because it's a part of you that wants to be healed. And you're not giving it the opportunity because you're not digging deep enough. So active imagination can help you resolve those emotional challenges, emotional and spiritual challenges, because you are now starting to deal with some of those things. And all those three leads to obviously personal and spiritual growth, which is so important. So it's something, if you're interested in Jung's work or, imagination, I would highly recommend looking more into active imagination. It's very interesting and very powerful. So this was something else that I ran across while I was doing my research for this particular podcast episode. It was a study done at McGill University on imagination and how it relates to empathy. So imagination can fuel empathy and positive social behavior. I'm going to just give you a summary of the study and then talk about some of the key takeaways. When I post this, I'll always post the slides with all of these. And that is a hyperlink. So if you want to go and dive deeper into the study, you can be able to go to the slide, click on that hyperlink, and learn more about the study. But I'm just going to give a brief summary. But I thought this was definitely worth something bringing up, because I think sometimes we miss this connection between imagination and empathy. So the study highlights the significant role of imagination in evoking empathy and driving pro-social behavior. While empathy is multifaceted, this research focuses on two aspects: personal distress and compassionate concern. The study reveals that vividly imagining someone else's problems increases personal distress, your own personal distress, which motivates you to offer help, because it's like, oh, I feel that, which is empathy. These findings break new ground in understanding the connection between mental experiences and actions, shedding light on why certain situations and individuals elicit more empathy than others. It's directly correlated to their power of imagination. So you might find that an empathetic person also has a more vivid, more rigorous, more active imagination than someone who is unempathetic or has less empathy. So some of the key takeaways from this study was that imagination plays a crucial role in evoking empathy and driving pro-social actions, which, if you think about it, that's very logical. And you can probably even go back in your own experiences and see that that's very, that clearly happens. If I, run across a situation that brings forth empathy, that's the first thing I'm doing is imagine how they feel. Oh, I imagine, oh gosh, it must feel so terrible to be, hungry right now, or it must feel so terrible for you to be injured like this, or, for you not to have something to eat, or whatever the empathy provoking situation is. I'm using my imagination to put myself in their shoes. And that's what's going to drive me to really want to help even more, because I'm really trying to feel with my imagination and picture what this must be like for that person who's going through something or that's in distress or whatever. The second takeaway is distinguishes between personal distress and compassionate concern as two facets of empathy. And how they play a role together, which I kind of just described with the last key point. But it does create that personal distress within you. When you have a vivid imagination, it will literally create physical, like I get physically distressed. Like I will feel ill. My stomach will be in knots. I will feel like I'm going to vomit sometimes. I definitely will cry, things like that. I will feel personal distress just from empathy, just from me imagining how that must be impacting someone else. And then the last key takeaway is imagining distressful scenarios in another person's life increases your own personal distress and willingness to help. So me feeling that way definitely will increase my willingness to help. For one, it's going to help me not feel sick and maybe, be able to calm my own self down. But it's also going to allow me now to imagine something different for this person, because now I'm helping. So now I don't have to imagine them hungry because I just fed them. I don't have to imagine them being alone and going through, a dark moment, because now I'm there holding space for them. So I thought this was a really good study. And I think that's something that we often look over with imagination, is that connection to empathy. So what I want to explore next is why and how our imagination became so limited. And this obviously is not by accident. So imagination, it's stifled right from the start, very purposefully and very intentionally. So before we create, we have to imagine. And this is a threatening reality for the powers that shouldn't be. Why would they want you imagining something different than what they said? This is how it's going to be. This is how it is. We rule over you. Do it like this. Only do it like this. They don't want you imagining a bunch of different ways to live. Of course not. Inhibiting imagination is an extremely effective and powerful tool for maintaining their control. So how can people truly change the world and how we live in it if we can't first imagine a different way of being and a different way of living? You can't. It's absolutely, utterly impossible if you cannot imagine a different way of being first. So the process of shutting down our imagination starts early, real early, and it's solidified once we enter the school system for sure. They knock it out. Even if you came in with a little bit, they're going to really do their best to knock it out, at least dim it down. So the dreamers in your class, the daydreamers, and those who think differently, they're outcasted, they're disciplined, they're ridiculed, they're diagnosed with mental health disorders. Oh, you got ADHD because you ain't paying attention. Maybe I'm dreaming of something way bigger than what you're talking about, teacher. That's not even given a thought. That's not even a possibility. It's just kids, especially kids, they don't want to be outcasted. They don't want to be shunned. They don't want to be disciplined. They don't want to be made to feel different. They don't want to be labeled. So labeled in a negative way. So yeah, they're probably not aware that they're shutting down their imagination to fit in, but they are just to fit in, just to do well in school, just to get good grades, just to get approval. That imagination is shutting down, and you just conform. You conform to the norms. You conform to society. You conform to being a good boy or a good girl. So children are quickly programmed to associate imagination with negative experiences, negative consequences, and negative emotions. So of course, you're going to start shutting that down. No one wants to experience all these negative things, especially a child. Children, seek approval, especially from people that they consider to be in a position of authority, like their parents or their teacher or their principal or, whoever. So it's definitely shut down on purpose. So why is let me see I saw a message here. I just want to see what it says. This is a message from Soul. Imagination is absolutely empowering or absolutely disempowering, depending on the larger context of mental programming. Chemicals, malnutrition, good points. Mental programming in teaching norms, entertainment, the job market, all attack the imagination prowess. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up, because I did not mention that. All of those things affect, especially the malnutrition. I don't even know how I missed that, because if you think about, in my youngest daughter, she is a daycare teacher. So I mean, yes, the things that children, it's at home, it's really bad too for a lot of kids, but certainly at school and at childcare centers, the food is terrible. And it really literally deteriorates their health and their brains. So yeah, your imagination is not going to be working because your brain's not working. You're not working right when you're malnourished and you're not getting the nutrients and things you need to have a vibrant, healthy brain. So that very good point. Thank you for bringing that up. Here's another clip
other ways,
I
I'm
share.
pointing out the fundamental power and persuasiveness of this unconscious process, our imagination, which is running all the time. I think this is where we turn to Albert Einstein. He noted that imagination is more important than knowledge. He went on in that passage to write that knowledge could be great, imagination greater. Any knowledge we have came from something we previously imagined. Let me give you an example.
Any knowledge we have came from something we previously imagined. That's how powerful imagination is. Any knowledge we have came from something first imagined. I don't think I could say anything that would make imagination sound more important than that, because it is that important, because that is a very true statement and a very deep realization that we all need to keep top of mind. So with that, it's being said, Now we can think about, how does our imagination improve our lives? Before I go through this list that I found, that I thought was a very good list of how imagination is and how important it is and how it improves our lives, I want to read this quote. Imagination does not become great until human beings, given the courage and the strength, use it to create. This is our creative power, like our creative juices, our creative energy, our vitality for life is all in imagination. It's beautiful when you just really think about the things your imagination can come up with. When you have like a vivid imagination, think of all the things that are around us, all the inventions where you're like, dang, it all started with imagination. So imagination is so important. It's like a foundation to human life, period. So this list, like I said, is a nice list that I found here from curiousdesire.com. So number one is imagination enhances mental exercise. So your imagination is kind of like a muscle. If you don't use that muscle, it atrophies. If you don't use your imagination, or it becomes very stifled, it atrophies. Like, it's going to become less and less useful. It's going to become less and less involved in your life. It's really going to deteriorate. So it's important that we strengthen our imaginations and do mental exercises to help do that. And we'll get into more of that as we go along. But also imagination helps you think outside the box. If you don't have an imagination, you are not going to come up with any solution that has not been done already before. You're just going to regurgitate what somebody else had thought of for a solution to a problem. So when you want to think outside the box and create something new or solve a problem in a new way, it's all imagination, because it, as step 3 says, it encourages creativity. You're going to, like I said, it involves your subconscious and intuition. So things are going to just kind of come out of you. You might not even understand where it's coming from, but it's engaging that deep spiritual part of you that energizes your creativity. It also helps you stay positive. When you have a vivid imagination and you think outside the box and you are creative, you're normally going to naturally be a more positive person, because even in the midst of a negative situation, you have the ability to think of all these different ways to turn that negative into something positive, or to at least challenge it. So it absolutely will help you be a more positive person with a more positive outlook when your imagination is robust and vivid. It also keeps you young, absolutely keeps you young, because all the things that I just listed help to keep you young. When you have that positive vibe to you, that positive energy and that positive outlook, that's going to help keep you young, because stress, tightness, contraction, all of those things age you physically and mentally, psychologically. It takes away your vibrance, your youthfulness, when you cut off your imagination. It also enhances your creativity for problem solving, which we kind of already talked about. It helps you connect with others on a much deeper level when your imagination is open and vibrant and active. And you're also going to draw in other people that also have active, vibrant imagination. You're going to attract each other, and you're going to be able to connect on levels that you can't connect with someone whose imagination is stifled. Because, like we talked about at the beginning, because of that collaborative imagination aspect, you can't collaboratively imagine with someone whose imagination is shut down. But when you do find people that have that same imagination that you have, you can start to connect on very deep levels. You know what we could do? We could do this, and we could do this, and we can create like this together. It builds very deep bonds and allows for problem solving, creativity, positivity, all those things to build on each other, to expand, to grow. It helps you deal with it helps you achieve your goals more quickly, which, is kind of clear. If you're positive, if you're creative, if you're thinking outside the box, yeah, you're going to achieve your goals more quickly, because now you have all those tools that you gain from your imagination, and it will also help you deal with adversity. Again, using those same tools that your imagination is supplying. And it also, which this is a very important one for these days, it helps you increase your attention span, because attention span is a huge issue right now. I mean, literally, you have people that can't pay attention to something for more than like a minute or two, like literally. And kids, oh my gosh, their attention span it's just really purposely being destroyed with the type of entertainment that they're constantly bombarded with and exposed to. So using your imagination will help you increase your attention span. So if you can draw out these long imagined, things or creations in your mind, you have to pay attention to your own imagination. So the more robust and vivid it is, and the longer your streams of imagination are, that's helping you increase your own attention span. And it's just fun. It's just fun. It brings that childlike fun out of you, utilizing your imagination. So another way it improves our lives is imagination is key to many spiritual practices. This is just a short list. I'm sure everybody can think of others, but visualization, that's totally built on imagination. What can you visualize without using your imagination? Guided meditations. They're usually, I do them quite often, and many of them are telling you, picture this, picture that. So you're using your imagination through the guided meditation. Prayer. Most of us, when we pray, we are imagining what we're praying for. We're imagining that being in existence. Artistic expressions, whether we're painting or writing or whatever. And those I consider artistic expressions definitely spiritual practices. And that absolutely requires imagination. The more imaginative you are, usually the better the artistic expression is. Gratitude practices. Usually if we're doing a gratitude practice, we're visualizing what we're grateful for. If I'm grateful for my beautiful daughters, their faces pop in my mind when I say I'm grateful for that. So gratitude practices, all these things, imagination is key. It also can assist with healing illnesses. So these are just 3 things that I'm going to bring up that imagination will assist with healing. There's tons more, but these are just 3 that really stood out to me. Guided imagery, which is visualizing calming and healing scenarios will engage your parasympathetic nervous system and reduce the body's stress response, which in turn promotes healing with that guided imagery. Restoring narrative. This is when you use your imagination to reframe experiences. I'm sure you all have heard probably of a reframing. So this can be particularly helpful during an illness. So you are looking at the situation from a deeper, new perspective, which can absolutely aid in the healing process. Instead of just looking at it as, woe is me, or I'm never going to get better, or whatever, you reframe everything and look at it from a completely different perspective with a completely different narrative. Pain management. So deliberate imagination, which we talked about earlier, deliberate imagination or guided imagination can be used to reduce pain perception. So when you deeply engage your mind in this way, it can create calm, it can reduce stress, it can relax the nervous system, which all can decrease your actual experience of pain. So we've talked about all these wonderful, wonderful ways that imagination can improve our lives. So how do we reignite our imaginations after so much programming with the control system dimming our imagination down? How do we reignite them? How do we reinvigorate them? So we can intentionally do activities to stimulate imagination. Writing, spontaneous movement, storytelling, inventing, co-creation with others. All those things can help us, stimulate our imaginations. Releasing program belief systems and habits, unlearning. That will do wonders for reigniting your imagination as you start to release the programming, release the hierarchy that we've taken on as just the way it is. Releasing those things And not that habits are necessarily inherently bad. You can have good habits, good routines, but we don't want to be so rigid that we can't change our habits or incorporate new things into our habits or veer from our habits or let our habits evolve as we evolve. So all those things will help, reignite and invigorate our imaginations. Interacting with other people who have strong imaginations, that collaborative imagination is coming in again. That is a powerful way to reignite your imagination. That just happened to me recently when Soul was letting me hear some of his rap, sparked my imagination right away to start writing. That is a powerful way to reignite your own imagination. It's just interacting with other people who have strong imaginations, other dreamers, other creatives. It goes a long way to help you, stimulate your own imagination again. Create new routines and have new experiences. Go new places, do new things, meet new people. Just newness helps stimulate imagination. And it'll even before you do it, just the fact that you've planned it, you'll start imagining, oh, well, when I do this, I wonder what it's going to be like. And your imagination starts going just from there, even just the plan of the new experience or the new routine or whatever will help trigger it. And then once you actually do it, it's, now you have even more that you can imagine, because you can imagine now new ways of doing it and new this and new that. So yeah, that's a great way to reignite your imagination. And also learning new skills or a new hobby, learn to play a new instrument, take an improv class, cook a new recipe, travel to a new destination. All these things will help you, get that imagination churning again. So how does imagination relate back to natural law? Because this is, after all, a natural law podcast. So if it's not clear to you already, I'll go into greater depth. Natural law and imagination are tied inextricably together. We must first imagine the world we want to live in. If we cannot first imagine that world, how do we create it? If we cannot imagine a world that works harmoniously with nature, that respects the rights of others, isn't dependent on money, promotes peace, and is deeply rooted in love of self and others, it is impossible for us to create it if we cannot first imagine it. And that is one of the biggest, I would say, barriers for many people. Especially, I talk to people all the time about natural law, the control systems, and creating new ways to live. And many people just shut it down instantaneously because they can't even imagine it. So let's talk. Let's talk, my good people. Let me make sure everyone is unmuted. Feel free to speak if anyone has any thoughts, comments, anything like that. Questions?
Cheers.
Hey, what's going on, Soul?
Yo. Man, so much is going on. So much is always
right? You ain't never lied.
I'm saying. But okay, so great presentation. First
Thank you. Thank you,
of all, I
sir.
just want to, acknowledge that the topic is on point. The imagination is either our greatest weapon or our biggest hindrance at times.
Yes.
Right? Because in my opinion, the mechanism through which we navigate our emotions is our imagination.
Yeah.
Yes. And so if you look at it's all mind, but if you, just for the sake of conversation, and again, in my opinion, the way I look at it, the imaginative thoughts that you're sparking in me with this presentation here, make me think that if you look at the emotional realm or the emotions that we feel, pardon me, as like the body, and the imagination as like the mind, then the merging of those two or the combination, not even merging, the combination of those two things, mind and body, give birth to like the state of one's spirit. And so if one's emotions are all out of whack and one's mind is all caged up and one track and closed-minded, then your spirit is affected by that negatively,
Yes. Yes.
right? And if your mental space is very creative and imaginative and refined and wise, and at the same time your body, your emotion, you're able to regulate your body, your emotional field, then that impacts you very positively, and it makes you prepared for a whole lot of different types of troubles that may come your way.
Yeah.
And so I guess just a comment to add to your already good presentation, I would say that the a good way to think about why one's imagination is so very important is because it's like half of the mind body, combo. If we can put the emotions as the body and the imagination as the mind, it kind of works like that. And I just think that the more
I'm sorry, you
people
went out.
that really know what's
Mhm.
how the more people that really know how we are programmed, the better we will do with this fight, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Those are very good points, Soul, because it's like a spiritual cage. When your imagination is shut down, you're like in a spiritual and emotional cage, which is very depressing. It leads to apathy. It leads to fear. It leads to anger because you don't see a way out of this cage because you have no imagination. You feel like life is a cage. Like life in and of itself inherently is bad or negative or evil or wicked. Because like, why is life doing this to me? Because you can't imagine another way for life to be. You know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No,
100%.
those are very, very good points. Any other questions, comments, feedback? No? Going once, going twice? No? Okay. Well, I definitely, appreciate you all so much for joining me. And I just want to tell you about the upcoming podcast. Men in the Movement will be my next podcast on Wednesday, August. Wait, no, that's the wrong date. I'm sorry. Let me see what it's on my website. That's the date for this. That's today. But it's actually, let me see. I got my calendar right here. Let me see. It is the 27th. So I will update that before I post this. It's Wednesday, August 27th at 7 p.m. And then the podcast after that is Gen Z and the Truth and Freedom Movement. And my special guest for that will be Trinity Mitchell, my daughter, and some of her cohorts, because I feel like the Gen Z, just kind of in totality gets a very, very bad rap. That, all of them are just apathetic. All of them don't care. All of them are lazy and all those things. So I really am so excited to get their perspective on all of these things. And I'm sorry, I didn't mention my guest for the men and the movement. And the movement that we're talking about there is the hyperlocal food movement and food sovereignty and all that great stuff. And my guest is going to be Lawrence Nature Boy Seals from Collectively Sustainable and Farm Fresh 24/7. And Malcolm Bigsteel and Mello Rucker are both parts of those organizations as well. So those will be some very, very dynamic podcasts. So I highly recommend, I hate that I put the wrong date on here, but I'll fix it. I highly recommend you check out both of them. The one with the Gen Z is on a Saturday. So keep that in mind. It's not on my normal date or time. It's Saturday, September 13th at 2 p.m. But it'll be well worth it for an hour of your time on a Saturday to really understand that generation from a whole different perspective. And as always, thank you so much for joining me, and visit the website for more information. That is affirmlifedaily.com. Follow on social media at affirmlifedaily. Your support is needed to help spread the message of truth and freedom to humanity. Please subscribe on YouTube as well at Affirm Life Daily. Infinite grace, love, and gratitude. All of you have a wonderful, wonderful evening.
Hey.